Excellency, we come from a region, you and I, of uneven development and many infrastructure backlogs. What do you think the big mega projects can do to help us improve employment levels, more even development, and most importantly, how can we begin to collaborate?
Well, we have to look at each country's background. The history of each country contributes to where we are in terms of the level of development, in terms of the acquisition of technology in our respective economies. But at the end of the day, history is the past. We now have to look into the future and to say what must we do for ourselves to improve the lives of our people into the future. In my view, speaking about Southern Africa, SADC in particular, all the member states of SADC have different histories and the size of our economies are different. But it is necessary that we integrate, we talk to each other, we have conversation about how we move forward. It is necessary that I should mention at this stage that the current crop of leadership in Southern Africa, SADC in particular, is now different from the founding fathers of SADC.
The liberation leaders.
Yes, because their task at the time they were seized with the task to liberate our region, that every single country in our region should be independent. So theirs was a political struggle to gain independence, freedom and dignity of our people. But our current crop of leadership have a different task to achieve. It is now economic rather than political. Yes, political because we must deepen our democracy. That is political. But it is necessary that we now grow and modernize our economies. We must be able, as we develop individually, make our economies talk to each other, have a conversation to each other. Now you are talking about major projects in our respective countries. What comes to mind immediately is the major projects that are applicable to the region. Things like energy. We have a deficit of energy in the entire SADC area. So we must look at how we must collectively resolve the issue of energy in Southern Africa or in SADC in particular. That's number one, so that as we move forward, as we modernize energy or electricity is critical to achieve that objective. Then secondly, the issue of infrastructure. Some infrastructure is domestic, that is, it's national. Some infrastructure is regional. If you look at roads, we must have roads that speak to each other. We must have roads that are developed a standard that is acceptable to the entire region in our area. Let us look at our railway infrastructure. Our railway infrastructure was developed separately during the colonial period, but now we must make sure our railway system and networks must speak to each other. We must modernize, we must have a vision as to what we must have in future in relation to our railway system in our respective countries. I think something like of the 15 or 16 countries of SADC, I think 12 of them or so are landlocked. They have no access to the sea.
Like yours, Mr. President.
Yes, like in Zimbabwe. But we must not then bury our heads in the sand and say we are landlocked. We should say, initially, we believe we must say we are land-linked. And how do we get land-linked? We must develop systems to take us to the sea. But down the line, as we cooperate with countries which share the seas, like Mozambique, South Africa, Namibia, we become also sea-linked.
Welcome, welcome to the 17th episode of the Revolutionary Star Season 2 for the year 2021. My name is Comrade Super Cabral and I'm here broadcasting live and direct from Harare, Zimbabwe to the comfort of wherever you are right now in our global world. Well, my comrades, today is Sunday, the 22nd of August 2021 and hey, my one, that's data. But from a layman's Bauer point of view, it's Kadas. Tiri kungoripa Bauer takachikoka on a Sunday, on a chill day, listen to some reggaeton. So today is Sunday, the 22nd of August 2021. We are going to be talking about Vision 2030 and the National Development Strategy Part 1, which is supposed to run from 2021 to 2025. So basically what we're trying to figure out is Vision 2030. Is this just smoke and mirrors or is it actually the real deal? Is this actually the real deal? Does ED really think he's going to pull this off? Is Vision 2030 something that's actually feasible? So today, this is what we're going to be talking about. It's going to be dense, but we're going to try and not make it too dense. It's a Sunday type of vibe. Get your wine, get your hunters, or get your Zambezi, and let's try and break it down for one actual science degrees. Timboona kuti mukuru edu ED chaizo here does Mdara really know what he's talking about? My 2 million jobs achabude here before 20.
Great. Well, my first question is quite a broad one. Could you please give us an update on the Zimbabwean economy for 2021?
Well, 2021 really promises to be a good year on the economic front. It's a year of our recovery. We've had 2 tough years. 2019 growth, a negative, easily 6%, if not more. We're just finalizing the figures now. We couldn't finalize them because of COVID, but now we will. And then 2020, slightly better, but still in negative territory for, about minus 4.1%. But this year we expect a recovery, certainly upwards of 5%. In fact, our government prognosis is more like 7.4%. But our view is that, any growth above 5%, we'll be happy with it. It's just recovery. What's driving it is a few factors. One is just general macroeconomic stability. After 2 years of battling with the macroeconomic environment, we have finally got the stability that we've been yearning for. So the currency is relatively stable after the introduction of the auction system. And that is really due to several factors. One is just a prudent and tight fiscal policy management, and also prudent monetary policy management, especially in the last few months. And then also a strong current account position. It's been in surplus for the last couple of years. So all that has really contributed. That's the auction design itself contributed to stability on the currency front. Now, looking at the performance of the sectors, the sector that will recover the most is obviously agriculture, because it was hit hard by the drought over the last few years, and then the cyclone effect. So we had a tough time. And so we expect a recovery easily of the order of 20% from that sector. Just looking at the in terms of output for the various crops, the key ones, where they're looking at wheat, maize, and so forth, things are really looking up. Then the availability of water naturally will power our hydropower availability, which is very good. So power outages would diminish this year. And then speaking to the companies, some of them are online here because they operate in Zimbabwe. We are seeing very decent figures in terms of increases in capacity utilization. That this year there's an expectation that capacity utilization levels will be as high as 60% for some sectors. And this is really pleasing. If that really pans out, it will be the highest levels of capacity utilization probably in the last 15 years. And that's real recovery. So it's quite pleasing. So really everything looks very good. And I think what we need to bed down this year as well is just to drive our agenda for improving the environment for doing business. So we're working on that. One thing that I had to do in the budget for 2021 when I announced it was to scrap this requirement for indigenous shareholding in platinum and diamonds. It's gone. If you're in the mining sector, you have freedom to own 100%. I know it did cause some confusion, the way we had said it in the budget, so I had to issue an extra statement, but I can assure you there's no requirement whatsoever for you to have any other shareholder other than yourself as a foreign investor in any of the sectors in Zimbabwe. So, but we have to keep working at the environment for doing business, and around currency convertibility, just reducing the country risk, making it easy to get licenses. We just have to keep going. For companies, especially in the mining sector that are export-oriented, we have created the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. You are free to list on that exchange. It's a US dollar exchange. In fact, I'll be announcing in the next couple of months a full bouquet of rules around a full offshore financial center, similar to Mauritius, Isle of Man. Hope we can catch up with the Isle of Man. I'm fully aware of the issues around tax havens and so forth. We're fully aware, but we still feel it's a worthy project in a small country like Zimbabwe in the middle of Africa to have that kind of environment, just to promote foreign direct investment and raise a capital. So this is, we expect a very good 2021, frankly.
Well, according to Comrade ED, the government decided that it was not going to leave any stone unturned in transforming Zimbabwe into a knowledge-driven and an industrializing power. Basically, our president and ZANU-PF were committing themselves to making Zimbabwe an upper-middle income economy by the year 2030. This was the vision that he gave. I think this document came out around 2018, right after my elections. So we just want to give you a time frame of when this came through. This is right after President Awawina. He hit the ground running. Note, this is still around the same time Chamisa is still bonga about the election that he said he had lost or had been stolen from him. So right after that, right after my elections, Tukupinda into Vision 2030. Right? So what's Vision 2030? Let's get away with the housekeeping. Vision 2030 pretty much is one of the many documents here in Zimbabwe that we create. What is Vision 2030? Let me just put it out there because we all know this is Zimbabweans. We've had almost, if it's not 13 to 15 of these documents since 1980 that the government just gives us. Mazimba, something about us Zimbabweans having learned, having been given a good education, we do not practically know how to use the knowledge we gained at university. But believe it, kunyora, if you give a Zimbabwe the opportunity of just writing something, English, we bedazzle you. So we've had these type of documents since 1980. Vision 2030 is a policy paper that is from a long line of policy papers which past all of this were nonsense. I think the last document before Vision 2030 was Zim Asset. So before I even get into this document, we do support President ED Mnangagwa. We are revolutionaries, but usually, if we are looking at the trend and the pattern here in Zimbabwe, policy papers are bullshit. They usually don't go anywhere. Not because the policy paper was drafted and was incapable of actually achieving the things that are in the policy paper, but the implementation is always a problem. We've always had a hard time as Zimbabwe. No, not as Zimbabweans. As the Zimbabwean government, i.e. ZANU-PF and the Zimbabwean government, in implementing these problems. Right now, the narrative that ZANU-PF is using is that that was the time of Mugabe. This is now ED's time. So we are going to judge ED with this one document he's come up with so far, which is Vision 2030. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say the past 13 documents that he was part of the administration Mugabe that came up with, last one being Zim Asset, he wasn't in charge, he wasn't Panyanga. So we're going to get with that. I just had to give this caveat comments because I know when you start reading and going into my policy documents, you know, as a card on a Sunday, because you'll be like, chance, what are my documents? But we could believe it's so we're trying to tell you, no, this policy paper here, some of it has actually been implemented very well. Some of it is far from being implemented very well. If you see some of our podcasts that we've done previously to this one, you can tell that there are a lot of places that are lacking, that can get improvement. So that's why it is important, and may I suggest to anybody who hasn't had the time to read the Vision 2030 document, just download the PDF file, put it on your phone, and get your Samsung Android or your iPhone to just read it out to you. as a PD file and just put on your headphones. Maybe if you're taking a jog or you're driving, when you're bored, just do that and listen to it. Yeah, you can be as critical as much, but at least hear what this Vision 2030 document is all about. MDC has read this document. MDC claims that the government stole this from their document that they used in their manifesto for the elections, which was the SMART document, right? Do you remember when people were Vaiwanzira Chamisa with the spaghetti roads? Well, Chamisa's camp claims that most of the information that was used in the Vision 2030 document was actually lifted, copy and paste from the SMART document. So we are going to do a secondary podcast where we are actually going to go and dissect the MDC SMART document and then counter relate that to the Vision 2030 to onati zesuere MDC vakabirwere ma goods ni government yedu. That's what we are going to do. However, now that we've got that out of the way, yeah, it is Vision 2030 and it's a document. Obviously, there's the fluff, the usual fluff of we are going to, like, right from the get-go when I started this podcast, it's claiming that it's going to make us upper middle income economy by 2030. Again, big words, sounds nice, sounds really good, but who gives? Nobody really cares whether or not you're middle income as a voter and as a cadre, no. But basics, if the basics are there. So, let's translate what this means. If our president is saying that he wants Zimbabwe to be an upper middle income economy by 2030, basically he is assuring us that by 2030, a middle income earner, that means somebody at a middle income, maybe it's somebody who is a manager at or a middle level bureaucrat at the civil servants with a wife who is in the private sector or has a small business. That is what I would define as a middle income earner, right? ED is guaranteeing that by 2030, a family unit yakadaro can afford to send their kids to UK for school with the income they are making. That's what I would expect when you're saying a middle income economy. When you look at these words, comrades, you need to translate them into what does that mean for me? Basically, if you're saying that you're going to be a middle income, upper middle income economy, that means you can afford. ED is guaranteeing that if you're a middle class by 2030, you can afford to send your kids to any school in the world that you want, right? Because they haven't told us, Kuti, this middle income economy by 2030, is it global or is it regional? Or maybe it is a government or is an OPF definition of what the economy is. So they already need to clarify what that is. So we'll leave that as is, that we're saying that we're going to get out of all the fluff. There's a lot of fluff, but all the documents that Zimbabweans make, as I said before, to those who are not Zimbabweans, bear with us. Zimbabweans, an average Zimbabwean is well educated, right? So to shove it in your face, we try and gloss over and make it look like panes rukiti when usually happen. So yeah, that's one thing that we need to actually get out of the way right now.
Let's talk about how the TSP is paving way for the National Development Strategy. As the TSP expires, I mean, there are obviously developments that the NDS can build upon. How do you think the NDS should build upon the TSP?
I think we are not going to see a fundamental change regarding the priorities. We see, as one would look at it, there are two issues that this challenge that are faced by this economy. The first one is the issue of production, right? Getting this economy to produce and actually attracting more investment in agriculture and particularly in mining, which are the key sectors. There is not enough happening there. The other thing is dealing with the issue of corruption, right, which to date has not really been dealt with as one would have expected. So to me, those are the two key issues that are going to make sure, right, number one, this economy begins to change direction. Number two, we begin to attract investment. And number three, we begin to create jobs. I keep repeating on this. You cannot go to a person who is sitting somewhere who is jobless and tell them, listen, our economic policies have been successful. One thing I've noticed in this economy, we don't measure job creation. If you look at all the developed economies, elections are based on the jobs that presidents create. Here we don't have a constant in this. index that actually measures how many jobs we've created this, because that is critical to the revival. Now, as I'm telling you, we've got another challenge in that this is a highly informalized economy. So sometimes economic policy has very little impact. For example, if you look at the tax issues, where we've got a highly informal sector that is not paying taxes, and the minister comes through and says, listen, he's reduced income tax to individuals. But a lot of people are not on the payroll, and it doesn't affect them. So how do we make sure that this economy moves away from a highly informalized economy to a more formal economy, so that economic policy can start having more impact on what is happening on the ground? So I don't expect a significant change in direction with the National Development Plan. I hope it's not going to be another Zim asset. Zimbabwe has had 14 economic blueprints since 1980, and today we're still speaking of reviving agriculture, we're still speaking of beneficiation in mining, we're still speaking of value addition, we're still talking about import substitution, things we've been talking about for the last 20 years. So if I can close quickly, it's the implementation and the capacity to implement our policy that will always be a challenge.
So, Zimbabwe Vision 2030 reflects the collective aspirations and the determination of the people of Zimbabwe towards a prosperous upper middle income nation by the year 2030. It goes on further in this policy document to say that it's going to come out in phases. So the first phase, it expired in October of 2020. This was the Transitional Stabilisation Programme. We had covered this in our previous podcast that we did. The Transitional Stabilisation Programme is the one where we were complaining about the 2% tax that Tulishin Ube had just put on us, right? And that was also a time when they were shutting down ghost companies and so forth. So yes, there were policies that the finance minister did put in there, but these were very painful, and we still haven't seen the results yet. So the Transitional Stabilisation Programme ran from 2018 to 2020. As at the beginning of this year, which was 2021, we're now coming into what it was the National Development Strategy Phase 1, right? And this is part of a 5-year medium-term development strategy that's supposed to run from 2021 to 2025. Note, these plans don't seem to be in line with my election campaigns, my parties, because if we are not mistaken, 2023 is when we are going to vote. So automatically, as a political animal that we are here, the Revolutionary Star, we can already tell that ZANU-PF is going to be saying, look at what we've done so far, let us go for another term and then we'll finish off where we started. Because they have done some stuff. But already, right there, they are already saying they are not going to be capable of accomplishing anything close to what they are saying in this document. Because if they are saying that the first phase, which is where we are right now, National Development Strategy Phase 1, is from 2021, this year, to 2025. There's no way they're going to complete 100% of that. But let's say they complete about 80% of that. That's still Phase 1. After that phase, they're then going to Phase 2. So basically, they're saying ZANU-PF needs to be in power for the next consecutive 2 cycles in order for this to actually work. Just let that sink in while we go into this document. That's why I am encouraging anybody who's not yet read this document. Yes, I know it's a long and a dense policy paper. We actually slept halfway sometimes when we're reading it. But it makes you understand with the disconnect that is going on politically and financially. I think it's a good thing that there's a disconnect, because it means the politicians are paying attention to the technocrats, right? So they are forming this in line with what the technocrats are saying, because this is going to actually be more difficult for a politician to sell to a voter. So if I was a politician, I wouldn't structure it in such a way that these dates are overlapping like this. I would have actually put it somewhere differently, because you're held to a higher standard. Nobody's going to believe you. Why, if you haven't done anything during your first term, why am I going to give you another full term? Why don't you make plans that are in line with the term that you have? Right? But you can tell, no, maybe we are giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're actually listening this time to their technocrats. So the technocrats have been, let off their leash. They don't have to come up with policy papers that are based on ZANU-PF political cycles. This is where we may give some credence to that. Maybe this document may be a bit different from the other previous 13 documents since 1980 that were there. So, 5-year medium-term development strategy, which is where we are currently, which is running from 2021 to 2025. And then after that, there's going to be a second one that runs from 2026 to 2030, right? These will be development strategies that outline policies, projects, and programs upon which long-term objectives and targets are expected to be realized, right? Vision 2030 seeks to fundamentally transform Zimbabwe to an upper middle economy with a per capita gross national income of over $5,000 So let me go back to what I'm saying. These guys are saying by the year 2030, basically, GDP income yemunari average would be $5,000 Right now, in real terms, 2021, it's currently at about 1.5, 1.3, right? This is the official financial numbers, but I actually think it's less than that, because here in Zimbabwe, people are surviving with $100 per month, right? But if you look at all the policy documents that you see running around online or whatever the government produces, usually they peg our GDP national income at around 1.2 to $1,440 And the government is saying that by 2030, they're going to push that from $1.4 $1,400 to $5,000 They are also going ahead and saying that Vision 2030 is going to target increasing the number of households that have access to electricity. So they are really going to focus on infrastructure. They're going to focus on energy, and they're going to try and really get the rural households up to par with the urban households. The result of that has already been seen. Most people right now in Zimbabwe are complaining at the fact that it doesn't seem as if the government is concentrating that much in urban areas. It's only recently, last week, when their EERP road rehabilitation program started building, rehabilitating the Seke road on the Harare-Chitungwiza road. But before that, it seemed all of the milestones that they were actually delivering to the populace or the citizenry were in rural areas and outside urban areas. Now, a person who is a political conspiracy theorist may think that no, this is a ZANU-PF tactic of strengthening their strongholds. That's why they've been concentrating in the rural areas at the sake of the urban areas, because Vagara wanozarwa roa 2023 kuma urban areas. But again, that would be a conspiracy theorist who would be saying that. We are just here to talk about Vision 2030, right? So this is what they're saying. They want the current electricity percentage here in Zimbabwe is around 50%, and they want to push that to around 72% by 2030. They already had a rural electrification program, and they are trying to push it. As we're speaking, ZESA now, or ZETDC, has started the net metering program, which encourages people to buy solar power and solar energy mechanisms so that they can their surplus energy can be put back onto the grid, and then they can distribute it further out. So again, this is what Vision 2030 is saying. Zvichabude here ipapo ndio patichida kuona kuti masamba acho here anenge akambira here zakadai zviri go. But what are the pillars? Okay, before we even talk further, what exactly is Vision 2030? If you see a person in the street and you asking them, could you call Vision 2030 chi, what would that person say?
Was this achieved?
Well, if you look under institutional reforms, we're now talking about institutional reforms. Some of the major, for example, objectives were: one, budget expenditure control.
Yes.
Making sure that, for example, there's more control on the budget expenditure. That has been achieved. Reform of public service, absolutely not. If you look at when Tuli came 2019, there were serious ghost workers on the payroll of the public service. I don't know what has happened to date, but we mainly got an issue where only 3,000 youth officers were taken off the payroll, and so to me, on reform of the public service, there's still a lot to be done, and also the value system within the, particularly performance and capacity to actually produce within the public service. There's still a lot of work to be done.
But what do you think needs to be done there?
Well, you know what we have done really is we still got the same architecture and individuals that used to operate under Mugabe, and with the same culture, right? The issue of non-consequences for non-productivity, right? And the issue of skills upgrade. If you look at some of our public service, the culture has not changed significantly. The service delivery consciousness is still not there, and things still take a lot of time to actually get delivered. So those are the issues we have. So I would say a fundamental reform is the issue of a performance culture, and actually making sure we shed off particularly people who've been in government for ages, who continually do things in the old way. So to me, those are key issues that will ensure that we create a competitive environment. Okay. We also have, if I could just finish the institutional reforms, the issue of state enterprise, state-owned enterprises, their restructure, reform, and privatization. That has dismally failed. There's been claims that this and this is happening. Up to date, we haven't seen much happening. We've actually seen, for example, the NRZ deal was reversed. We've seen the Zisco Steel deal reversed, and we saw CSC, an investor came in, and then there's too much chaos there around there. The issue of devolution, we still have to, to do that, and also dealing with corruption, ease of doing business. You see, there's been some changes regarding, for example, when businesses apply for licenses and whatever, but it's still not easy to do business in Zimbabwe. We can talk about that later. And there's,
Well, according to this policy document, Vision 2030 has got certain pillars, and there are 5 pillars that it has that they are working on. They are just using the word pillars, but this is basically my pledges. And these pledges are 1. Governance, 2. Macroeconomic stability and financial re-engagement, 3. Inclusive growth, 4. Infrastructure and utilities, and 5. Social development. Right off the bat, I can tell you that out of these 5 pillars, the one that I can tell the government has been doing a good job, or the ED Mnangagwa's administration has been doing a good job, is infrastructure and utilities. So that's a point for them. Social development, not so much. A lot of people background don't feel as if they are part of this. Macroeconomic stability and financial re-engagement, yes, that's been going well. We'll give them a point on that one. Governance, jury is still out on that one, because globally, of course, we know there's regime change agents, but we will have to say that the jury is still out on that. Inclusive growth, we may have to go further and figure out what that is. So right now, analyze or bring an analyst, an economic analyst to our podcast. We can already tell you that from a layman's perspective, if you name these 5 pillars and ask a person to rate and give points to what President ED Mnangagwa has done so far, he's sitting at maybe 2.5 out of 5, right? We'll give him half a point for governance, especially the way they handled COVID. He got a lot of flack for that. He was called a copy and paste president, but he came out through crazy. Even the way Chiwenga was then made Minister of Health, but they came out through. So we'll give him half a point for that, right? So yeah, 2.5 out of 5. They still get a 50% approval rating when it comes to that, if you're a lay person. What does this mean? These 5 pillars, what do they mean? Well, they say that fiscally, government is trying to redraw its national budget approach towards something that's going to be decentralized, right? They're going to tie this in with devolution, right? And then the budget is going to start coming from the ground, going up to a national level. And they're going to be underpinning this with regional investment and development master plans in every province, so that they can try and be as attractive as possible. For them to achieve this, they're saying that they're going to have to make sure that, this is their catchphrase now, comrades, enjoy. They are going to have to make sure that they are ensuring an ease of doing business. You see, when Mazimbas to go slip in my catchphrases, ease of doing business. If you see this policy paper, this phrase is in italics. They've italicized this phrase just to show. So it's like for my diaspora, ease of doing business, right? And they also want to lower the cost of establishing a business. Establishing a business here in Zimbabwe is very high. But it's funny how this policy paper is talking about lowering the cost of establishing a business, but does not say anything about lowering taxation, because we also get taxed like a motherfucker in this country, right? And they've got very high taxes. Up until now, we are still smarting from that IMMT intermediate tax at 2%. Anyway, market-wise, each province will then be expected to transform itself into an investment and an economic zone with its own GDP and with its own capacity to venture out overseas in its own right for foreign direct investment. That means National and Central inokwanza wena ku Texas. Wona governor of Texas motogadzira madhiri enyu muri 2 yakadaro. City of Harare used to be able to do that when they had an executive mayor, but you know how politics go. That's no longer there. So they've been trying to do this, and they have been trying to pass this along with the devolution that is currently underway here in Zimbabwe, right? So this is where you see that criticism for President ED Mnangagwa saying that he's ruling by decree. There's articles that have been coming out saying that the president has been ruling by decree because he just keeps churning out statutory instruments. Unfortunately, that's not true, comrades. I just go to great power, not say that, but it's not true when people are saying that he's just ruling by decree. He has to be passing out these statutory instruments, a lot of them, because he has to operationalize for devolution and all these other issues, right? For his ministers of state in these provinces to actually be functioning, he has to actually come up with all these statutory instruments that are coming out right now, right? So this is why we're going in. He's trying to get in line with section 264 of the Constitution when it comes to the devolution and the central government devolving more powers to provincial councils that will then craft political economic development plans that are supposed to apparently bring out Vision 2030. Like I said, this policy paper is well written. Apana policy paper in Zimbabwe is still well written. So again, I'm just going through the motions, right? But it's a well written document, and we're then going to delve into whether or not it's true as we're talking and analyzing this document moving forward.
Somehow to address infrastructural gaps within the country. Would you say this goal has been achieved?
Well, yeah, I mean, let us be clear. I'm not saying it has been an utter failure. What I'm saying is it has not met my expectations from what I expected. There's nothing wrong with particularly on the issue of infrastructure. But let me ask you something. We've had these things that my colleague was talking about, the issue of the surplus managing. But what has been the social impact? Has the quality of life of the Zimbabwean changed because of the TSP? That is the question we need to ask, because we can get carried away here looking at numbers and looking at percentages. For example, a lot of people have been asking, we've got a surplus, so what? My life is actually deteriorating. A surplus is meaningless to me because my life has not improved. Has the quality of life of Zimbabweans improved since the TSP has come into play? My answer to that is no. Have we seen significant disposable incomes where individuals create local demand and are able to afford the day-to-day kind of living in this economy? My answer to that is that no. Number 3, has the quality of infrastructure, particularly within our urban areas. We can boast here that we've got a big highway. But if I haven't got water in the townships, if the urban areas don't have water, if the roads in the urban areas are not sorted out, I am not experiencing whatever the minister might be saying he's been successful at. So the social impact of the TSP has been very minimal as far as I'm concerned.
A lot of people are saying, yes, nice document, everything good. Economic analysts are saying 2.5 out of 5. But corruption. Implementation. Todi, well, Vision 2030 is talking about this as well. Vision 2030 is saying that accountability institutions and independent commissions that's required to be strengthened and capacitated to improve accountability, transparency, impartial enforcement of the law, and upholding of property as well as human rights will be given as much support as possible. This is what the document says. So these type of accountability institutions that we're talking about include Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, Zimbabwe Gender Commission, Zimbabwe Media Commission, National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, the Auditor General, and the Accountant General, as well as the Corporate Governance Unit. Damn. Tinema Commission nema areas agawanda. And as I said, most of these commissions here, they are no garage term news. Newspapers are always attacking these commissions. I know ZAC is always being attacked. Or no, not attacked is the wrong word yet. It's being criticized. The National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, people are now seeing it as just a plum job for President ED Mnangagwa's sycophants who've decided to join ZANU-PF. That's also being attacked. The Zimbabwe Media Commission, there were some very good appointments that were made to that one. We are expecting the Media Commission to actually be very revamped and improved. So far, nobody's been criticizing the Electoral Commission, which is very surprising. You'd expect opposition party leaders right now to be on ZEC's ass, because we are only left to 2021 for fundraising. 2023, we are on the ground Taku campaign. So that one is suspect. The Auditor General has been doing a good job. Mildred has been really doing a good job. Some of the findings are actually being implemented. I think recently she was removed from a certain board so that she can have more autonomy in, you can't be the judge and at the same time make a decision on a board or something like that. It happened like 2 weeks before this podcast. So this is what the government is trying to do. It's trying to institute and strengthen or capacitate these organizations to fight against corruption, lethargy in the civil service, and to try and push for implementation faster. The government is also saying that it's going to try and institute role clarity in public administration and economic management with respect to the functions of various arms of state. That is, for example, the central government, local government, quasi-government institutions, and so forth. So, what am I saying here? They are trying to make sure that each person knows what their role is. So, for example, kana uri ku office kwa president, you're in the cabinet. If you're in the ministry, or if you're in the treasury, or if you're in the central bank, or if you're a local authority, or you're a state-owned enterprise, or you maybe Zinara or Zinwa, you each know what your role is. You don't get into the other's role. Kana uri mCTN, ramba uri mCTN, aungoendeka ku Zinara akaongotanga kudza vanhu zvekuita ikoko. This is pretty much what Vision 2030 is saying, is that quickly, specifically delineated areas that are specific to the roles that they're supposed to be playing, IPAP or IPAP. That's what they're saying. So, is this going to work? Well, we have to wait and see whether or not this is going to work, because they are believing as a Vision 2030 or as a policy that these steps that they're trying to take are going to reduce the government's footprint in the economy. Basically, President ED Mnangagwa in this policy paper is saying, I am trying to put the government out of the business of the economy. That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to liberalize the economy, right? This is what his document is pretty much trying to say through Tulisi Ngube, right? So he's going to try and empower entrepreneurs, foster innovation at every level. And some of the policies that this paper is talking about is, for example, the liberalization through introduction of a market-based system, respect for property rights and encouragement of private enterprises to thrive, policy consistent, predictability, certainty, and credibility. Now, these are three principles. I can tell you right off the bat. Respect for property rights and encouragement of private enterprises to thrive. The Mnangagwa administration has been struggling with this one. Struggling. We've had several cases so far in the media where people are being kicked off their land. I'm not sure if the government is hiding behind the fact that it's a state-owned land, even though these are heritage reservations. So there it's a bit tricky. Again, property rights at a local level. Right now, registrars often in deeds office, since last year, realtors have been complaining about the way people have been selling property with fake title deeds. And there are times when they are missing title deeds. I don't even know why they haven't finished digitizing my title deeds in Zimbabwe. Right? We have issues about offer letters from the farms. This podcast being published this week, I think it was maybe Wednesday or Thursday of this week, Masuku, the Minister for Lands, actually went to Parliament and told them that there's too many people coming to look for land. Officially from the Minister of Lands and Agriculture right now, this week, this podcast, when we are telling you this podcast, he's officially said that Zimbabwe no longer has land. He said this in Parliament. You can Google this up and you can find it out. He officially said it in Parliament. There are too many people who are waiting to get land. It's done. There's no more land left. So, besides no more land left, we still have offer letters that have not yet been given. You get it? The only other way the government is going to actually get more land is if they actually downsize the A2 farms that they had given. So on respect for property rights and encouragement of private enterprises to thrive, they're struggling on that. Liberalization through introduction of a market-based system. I think this is Mthulisi Ngube's personal pet project, but he's going to but he's going to face a lot of political backlash. And I don't think he has the political clout to do this because ZANU-PF is not built for a liberalization of a market-based system, right? They are just used to control. They would probably prefer a China-type model where you have specific industries that are capitalistic, but the other ones are towards the command control structure, whereby the government is telling what to do. The only problem with Zimbabwe compared to China is that China has Zurumuropa for bureaucracy. Before they even got to it, China has been a bureaucratic nation for centuries, unlike Zimbabwe. That's why it's easy for China to have a command structure and get away with it, unlike Zimbabwe. It's a very young nation. So yeah, this is where we're looking at transparency and accountability underpinned by a fiscal, responsible government that's disciplined. Again, nice buzzwords, but will it come out to be as what they're saying? Well, the jury is still out on that one, comments.
We have to be clear what agriculture is and what mining is. The key area we have to focus in Zimbabwe is industrialization. Because if we focus in agriculture currently, as we mainly rely on tobacco exports and cotton, and we rely on the mining sector on gold and platinum and nickel, we cannot have an economy that is too dependent on the export of primary commodities, because we then become, we get affected by external pricing, international pricing.
Even if that industry is fed by agriculture and mining.
Yes, it is. So what I'm saying is, if we don't industrialize, it doesn't, you can industrialize without having agriculture. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not only agriculture that leads to industrialization. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Although agriculture does feed industrialization, but we need, to me, one fundamental issue we lack is a more aggressive industrialization strategy, where we are saying, let's move away from the low-wage agriculture, let's move away from primary products and begin to produce products that create local jobs and that cut imports of finished goods so that we can actually create local wealth. The Minister of Industry and Commerce should actually be more aggressive than they have been to date. We should get the Minister of Industry and Trade being at the forefront of, I hope that will be the case, for example, in the National Development Plan. So it's all and good to say agriculture and mining, but let's be very specific. What in agriculture? Let's reduce primary exports, right, of products in agriculture. Let's beneficiate locally. We create jobs. It means we have to, to bring in more technology, but more important, we keep going to this, which is an issue we are not really addressing in this discussion. The issue of corruption remains the number one enemy of any economic development in this country. And to me, we haven't really been too serious in making sure we address that issue.
So, they are also going ahead and saying that the usual bottleneck systems that had been existing here in Zimbabwe, like ZIMRA, the municipalities, EMA, ZESA, AMA, NEC, NASA, Liquor Licensing Board, have all got to go or reorganize or restructure so that they don't have a bureaucratic bottleneck system, right, that undermines ordinary business undertakings for households or individuals. If they manage to do this, this will be huge. These type of bureaucratic structures are killers. You can spend the whole day Uruku Liquor Licensing Board, kind of Uruku City of Harare, just for one issue. Just for one issue. So if they are capable with Vision 2030 to actually change the administrative procedures, timelines, and the costs, right, and streamline this in line with their catchphrase, ease of doing business, that will be a win. Up until this podcast, they have not yet achieved this, right? However, we are suspecting that putting people in the position of the provincial administrator like Muguti for Harare and in other provinces is the way that President ED Mnangagwa has been trying to fix this issue, because Muguti has been he's been like a rabid dog when it comes to this type of streamlining. People are actually saying that he's nosy, which is a good thing. If you see other civil servants criticizing Muguti, including ZANU-PF members that criticize Muguti, it means he's actually doing a good job. So maybe this was actually a strategy from President ED Mnangagwa that no, in order for me to actually help this ease of doing business situation and sidestep the political landmines that will be there using the usual way of ministerial duties to do, provincial administrator through the Minister of State, right? So you see, we are going back to the devolution, right? You couple that with the statutory instrument. Planning, but if you look at the local news, the people are oneka sterek mazwano. My provincial administrator, my Minister of State for the province, and the local councils or commissions. Those are the people that are not seen. It's rare these days to actually see a minister of a cabinet giving press conferences all the time. They are not doing that. They are now behind the scene. This looks like it's been an actual deliberate move on President ED Mnangagwa's part to make sure that his cabinet is behind the scenes and he pushes bureaucrats up front and center, whereby the minister is now only used as a rubber stamp and he reports back to the president in cabinet meetings what's been going on. So I don't know if this will work out, but this is how it seems as if it's been going on right now so far here in Zimbabwe. With this one, they have also been trying to, again through the provinces, they've been trying to set up special economic zones across the provinces. Bulawayo, heavy industry, Harare, they want to do ICT. There was a data research center that was recently opened by President ED Mnangagwa. I think it was early this year or last year. Manicaland, food canning, diamond cutting, polishing. This week, at this podcast being published, President ED Mnangagwa was actually in Manicaland opening an oxygen plant as we are speaking. Mashonaland Central, they want to do agro-processing. Mashonaland West, agro-processing, chrome, cotton, and textiles. Mashingo, they want to do sugarcane processing. Matibeleland South, they want to do gold production and livestock. Whilst in Midlands, they want to do iron steel, is in create a corridor there. They also want to get into asbestos, gold, leather, footwear, and dairy. Basically, all these are at-risk areas that they're going to try and create special economic zones so they can try and resuscitate these things in those areas. Harare, they also mentioned health services. They want to resuscitate the health services here in Zimbabwe. This is interesting. This may go in also with what Comrade Chiwenga had been talking about. Tying all of this in, we have the rural electrification with the end-use infrastructure development, which was there since President Mugabe's time, targeting electrification of smallholder irrigation schemes, schools, clinics, and home industries in the rural areas. Government has always been on it when it comes to the rural areas, and they seem to have been investing more ever since President ED Mnangagwa came into power for the rural areas. The Vision 2030 policy document actually states that they are trying to make sure that the rural areas catch up with the urban areas. But for Munarepa ground, it will end up feeling as if they're doing it on purpose because they don't want to invest money in the urban areas because that's where the MDC voters are. That's the feeling that is there from economic analysts as well as local business owners as well as the MDC itself, right? Is it true? Well, until we get an opportunity to ask a ZANU-PF person directly or the government, we don't know. But again, here we're just telling you what the feeling is. Because have they been investing a lot of money? Yes, they have. But most of that money that they've been investing and they've been developing has been in the rural areas. That's why you don't see it on Twitter. You see, and that Twitter is in the urban areas because there's the data, there's the digital, there's all that, whatnot, and then there's the diaspora. And the diaspora will be concentrating on what? Urban areas. But in the rural areas, they're not on Twitter 24/7. Or they'll be doing other day-to-day activities, and maybe at night is when they are actually online. If they're online at all. Maybe it's now changing with the COVID lockdown now, and the government has been pushing most people to actually go online or use digital platforms in order to actually educate themselves or teach their kids to avoid COVID being spread amongst the populace. So maybe that's going to change coming in this year, because data has actually been going up here in Zimbabwe ever since we got into our COVID lockdown. Right? Isusi here, the revolutionary star podcast, because we had been forced to be at home most of the time when Tiripa ground usual.
We turn now to exports. And Zimbabwe and UK have been trading on a UK-Zimbabwe Economic Partnership Agreement terms since January the 1st this year. And this allows for tariff-free and quota-free exports of Zimbabwean products to the UK, which makes it a very easy, smooth, profitable market. Can you please talk about the National Development Strategy and how you plan to drive export-led growth? Thanks.
Thank you very much for making reference to the National Development Strategy, which is really is our economic blueprint that's going to drive our development agenda and growth agenda over the next 5 years. And within that, the export growth agenda is key because if you cannot compete globally through exports, then your industry or whatever economy is not competitive, really. So that's how you show and demonstrate competitiveness and drive competitiveness. So we're looking at various sectors. First of all, I would say the first order of business is some form of beneficiation. Then it allows us to then convert those primary products, be they in agriculture or in the mining sector, into secondary and value-added products for which then one can compete globally. But I must say that for the UK specifically, as a target market, Zimbabwe has always had a record of exporting agricultural commodities into the UK without beneficiation. Beneficiation is other markets. So you recall a time when we used to, get into Marks and Spencer's, any part of the UK, and you find Monge 2 from Zimbabwe and some Brussels sprouts from Zimbabwe. That was a long time ago. Frankly, we would like that era to come back. We want to be able to again export our agricultural products into the UK. I would say that's one industry where really there are quick wins in terms of the relationship. The flower industry as well. We Zimbabweans need to do a lot more investment in the horticulture flower industry sector to get it back to where it was, so that again we can export those fresh roses to the UK. So I would say really driving exports around the agricultural sector, both in terms of food as well as horticulture, as I've mentioned, cashew nuts, flowers, whatever, is critically important. We will be driving that. We're acutely aware that also there are rules around who can export to the UK. Are these products from farms that are, there's still controversial ownership around them? We're aware of that. And those are things that we need to kind of just clean up and make sure that we can make that relationship work. So really, I would say agriculture is the most important. Of course, minerals, our minerals go everywhere, so it's UK, it's China, wherever they're needed, they are really, they go everywhere. But also the other way, which is really Zimbabwe, importing from the UK. That also is another opportunity as we grow this trade agenda, that we need to look for opportunities where Zimbabwe can start importing more from the UK. But I must admit that Asia is very competitive, as we all know. They're competitive everywhere, especially China. So in terms of imports, they compete very hard on price. But we are aware that UK also has some very competitive products, which we should try to take advantage of. You know what? Then something else, which is it's not quite an export, but against an export of skills. That Ambassador Robinson, I've always had the idea that maybe we could be more systematic in the way we manage the remittances from Zimbabweans in the UK. They are an export to the UK. We exported skills in the nursing sector, maybe some teachers and others. Maybe there's a way in which that could be systematized into a program that is agreed between the two countries and not haphazard. But we are very happy with the remittances from the Zimbabweans in the UK. Thank you very much.
So, this is a long document. We're going to stop halfway and we're going to do a part 2 where we actually get in and look at what does the document mean? What does it prioritize? Where did it actually get its success or where did it not get success? And have somebody come in and tell us. But just in a quick rundown of what the government has achieved so far. Well, from the 2021 season, this is just off the top of our heads, just so that we can wrap up. 2021, they came up with Fumvudza, which we had a podcast about, but we are going to do a follow-up on the Fumvudza because, again, there's some criticism that we can give the government for this one. There was the presidential input scheme. Again, that's a good scheme, but it's got its deficiencies. We also had the National Enhanced Crop Productivity Scheme, Command Agriculture. Good scheme, but it also has some issues. We had the irrigation scheme, we had the livestock growth plan and the farm mechanization program. The farm mechanization program has actually been working. All of these actually helped give us a higher growth for 2021. And we actually had a 2021 cropping season where our maize output actually rose by, I think, 193%, if I'm not mistaken. So we're looking at from 0.9 million tons that we produced 2019 to the 2020 season. We ended up getting 2.7 million tons. That's not a joke, my comrades. From 0.9 million tons, we actually raised that to 2.7 million tons. So, you can hate me, a lot of money is being wasted, this, that, but the numbers don't lie. We're looking at 193% raise. And of course, MDC then came back and countered that, no, this was because of a good rainy season. It had nothing to do with all of this stuff. Whether or not the rainy season, whether or not you guys have put the money in, the rainy, you would have not got those numbers. Again, we will see when we get deeper into this in one of our subsequent podcasts. Tobacco also rose by 6.1%. We are looking from 117,000 hectares were cultivated 2019. That rose to 125,000 hectares. So yeah, government has been raising the profile when it comes to agriculture. Besides that, they've also just opened up a commodities exchange. This happened, I think, if not this week or last week, the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange commodities market was then opened. And the good thing about this commodities market is that you can actually use the paper that they give you. If you're a farmer, you can use the paper that they give you there to actually get a loan, because you can use it as collateral. So we will be talking about that in a subsequent podcast about the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange system that was promulgated by the statutory instrument 184 of 2021, right? This is going to be another huge thing. It was an initiative it was a PPP, government and private buyers, as well as development buyers, and it's expected it's huge. Can't talk about it right now, but it's part of Vision 2030, but we can't talk about it right now. This is huge. And just the fact that people are now getting to know how to buy shares here in Zimbabwe is another thing we need to talk about as well. So yeah, things have been going. We haven't even got into the infrastructure that they've done. We're going to have to do a second podcast where we actually break down the infrastructure, all the developments the government has actually done. And then we're going to actually see whether or not cumulatively it actually helped. Was Vince Musewe correct in what he said? No, social impact. Hongo turi kuona kuti muri kugona basa, muri kurwisa. But social impact yenyu iri kubatsira here munhu ari paground. We want to get into that deep when we actually do the highlight all the milestones the government done, and then we counterpose that with what Vince Musewe did. But for today, Sunday, we wanted to stay and keep it light. We know what is gonna be too long, zinofinura. So this is what we are going to say. We hope you have a great Sunday. And this has been Comrade Super Cabral. Roger out.